So if I were to draw a map of Saskatchewan, and let's say this is Saskatoon, where is it? Is it down here somewhere?
Yeah, it's like in the southwest.
Even farther?
A little bit upper. That is right there, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I've been there actually. I took a Norwegian visitor there and he stands, he says, "Why did you bring me here?" It's like, I'm going to leave you here too. Okay, so the Great Sandhills. Do you have to pay to go there?
No.
No, you don't pay a fee to get in. Is it, what kind of a resource is it? Think about public-private goods. Is it a public good? Is it private good? Is it open access? Is it a common pool? Is it club good?
Open access.
Yeah, pretty much open access. It is not, it's public property in terms of, it's owned by the government, isn't it? Is it a park?
I'm not like, I like live right there and we can like walk in it and I don't know if it's owned by the government or not.
It's not private land though, is it?
I don't think so.
Okay, so if it's not private, chances are it's public. So it's owned by the government, so it is a public good in terms of exclusivity and rivalry. Like if you go out in a sand dune, are you wrecking it for everybody else? Not likely. You're probably going to be one of the only people there. So we would consider this a public good. At some point, there might be degradation. People could drive in and drive all over the dunes and smash little organisms and stuff that they shouldn't be. So if we want to know the value of this, we can do a lot of information. We can collect information, and how might we use that information? Like why would it be important to estimate the value of this resource? So you can sell your house for more, farm. Like if we want to take public dollars and manage it, that might be something we could do. We could estimate the value of that and then reallocate public dollars. You don't necessarily have to raise taxes. If the area gets to a point where you're overusing it, you might want to think about charging a fee. Right? There's a lot of regional parks you have to pay to visit those parks. They're kind of like public goods, but we can exclude people from using them. At some point, we might want to exclude people from using this area because it's ecologically sensitive. So what is the value of that and what are we giving up? It's good to know those types of things, those values, to be able to make decent decisions. So we might estimate this. We could estimate the value of the sandhills using a number of different methods. We could do CVM and just send out a survey and ask a lot of people. Or we could do a travel cost method and do a survey of the people who actually visit that area at a particular time. So it might be, is it used at some point more than others? Graduation time perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Is like a run on the sandhills at some point? Okay. So you would choose a particular time, maybe the July long weekend, because that's heavy use. And you would set yourself up, establish these zones, understand where people are coming from. So what you're going to do is a survey, and you're going to sit there and do this survey, and you're going to talk to the people who visit. You're going to ask them where they came from and how much money they spent to get there. How many times do they visit? Those types of questions. Those answers, you would expect that somebody who visits every weekend might value that resource more than somebody else. Somebody who travels from a great distance to visit the sandhills, like Norway, for example, might value that resource more. They spend more money. So that's what you want to find out. Where are the people coming from? So you establish these zones. So we might say the local zone, and they don't have to be, you know, concentric circles. You would do this according to roads. I don't know where the roads go, but I'm guessing. So the first zone would be, you'd calculate the zone and then the population in that zone. Zone 2. And then the population for zone 2. So zone 1 might be just the local area, farmers, landowners, small towns. I don't know what small towns are down there. What?
Scepter, leader.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we did say, I don't know, 200 kilometers in all directions, what do you think the whole population would be? 12.
Yeah, not very many.
Okay, so the population might be very small. Okay, so we're gonna come up with a population, according to my thing, of 125. The next zone might be a bit bigger, and you have, I don't know, Swift Current, you have Maple Creek. My knowledge of southern Saskatchewan is rather bleak. Here you have Uranium City, Kamps and Portage, Bushel, Fond du Lac, Stony Rapids, Lawash, whatever. Okay, so you calculate all the towns and the populations in those zones. So that's the next step. After you do that, you calculate the cost of travel, the average cost of travel that you would expect from each zone. So I'm saying cost, not price. So to travel from zone 1, probably like there and back, half a tank of gas, if that. No hotel costs, no extra costs. If you're coming from a little bit farther, people might travel from Saskatoon down for a day, might be a tank of gas, maybe a little bit more. If you're coming from a lot farther, say that, let's see, BC, blah, 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 whatever. Say you're coming from Vancouver, you're in the very last zone. Well, it'll take you a day and a bit to get there. You're going to spend a lot of money on gas. You might even fly and rent a car or something like that. So the assumption is that the farther away you are, the higher the cost of travel. So for each zone, you will have a cost, and the cost must go up as you get farther away. That's one of the assumptions of the method.
What if though, like say you're going to visit your relative in Swift Current, and then it's like on the way home you take
Just
a
pop
detour
in.
there? Would you calculate your
Good point.
cost from Swift Current or from your home?
When you have, you actually ask questions in the survey, just like you've asked. So she raised a good point. What happens if you're visiting somebody and you just stop in on the way home? So you didn't actually spend all that money just to go to that site. So of course that value isn't going to be, it's not going to be reflected in the travel cost. So we would ask in the survey, did you travel from home for this particular site? Is this your final destination? I hate that. Destination is pretty final. You know, when you sit in the airplane and they say, we're going to pre-board. How can you get on before you get off? You know? Final destination. Anyway, so is this your destination or not? The other thing is, what if you're doing a tour of something or other, Sandhills? You go to the Sandhills and then you go to Cypress Hills and then you go down into the Badlands and blah, blah, blah. So we need to know that it's a single destination trip and that you're spending the money to get there and there only. So what you do is you do a survey and you get 50,000 surveys back. You look through them and you say, okay, this one, out, out, out. So you take that information and you don't use it. Or use it, you talk about it, but it's not included in the estimation. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so the next thing, we did population, we calculated the cost. Then you do your survey. So you usually sit there with a paper survey or you give people an address for a web something or other. And you ask all about their costs. And you ask from whence they came. Where is their home? So you want to know the distance traveled. You want to know if they're retired or not. Because one of the things, if you're spending money, say you're 2 days on the road, and what kind of costs would we be interested in? If you're spending 2 days on the road to get there, you don't spend money, but what cost should we consider?
Opportunity cost?
Opportunity cost, right. Because you're giving up a lot. If you're retired, you're probably not giving up very much at all. So we make adjustments for retired people versus not, and income. So you also get all kinds of demographic information. Woman, man, kid, how many people in your party, where did you come from, and people are not they're not really opposed to giving you their zip code or their postal code. When you ask somebody value, or if they want to pay taxes, higher taxes for a good, you get a different response. So typically you don't get a lot of what we call protest responses when you're being asked where did you come from and how much money did you spend to get here.
Do you ask if they have any other options? Like if,
Yeah.
say it's a lake.
Yeah.
'Cause if there's, like here up north, there's lots of free lakes and someone's looking to maybe charge to use one of those lakes. Probably most of the value is the fact that the lake is free.
Yeah.
And if they charge, then the value's gonna plummet because they do have other options.
That's a really good point. Are there substitutes in the area? And how much do they have to pay? What are those substitutes and what are the values? So all those kind of questions can be asked here, and then you can figure it out statistically later what this means. These things get quite complicated as well. You can do multiple destinations and do some fancy econometrics to figure out, parse out the values for this lake, that lake, and all sorts of other things. Okay, what's the next thing? So you conduct the survey, so you figure out what the survey is, and then conduct the survey. For a particular time, we're trying to calculate, we've got quantity and price, we're trying to calculate willingness to pay and the consumer surplus, which is total value. So what is that value? When we look at this picture with any supply and demand curve, this is per particular time. That's supposed to be a T. So it might be the demand curve for that weekend, but it's not going to reflect the demand for going to the Sandhills in December. It might be different. So if we might just be looking at long weekends. What are the value of parks on long weekends? And that helps to manage parks on long weekends. So if you're going to conduct a survey, you're going to want to be there at the same time as the demand that you're interested in. So you would choose a couple of weekends and a few times, sit there, hand out your survey. So people could mail them back or they could fill them in right there, whatever.